First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Look there at downtown Portland, and that is one of our many cameras. As you can see, it's not raining, which is rare for right now, so we appreciate that. But again, we are live here from the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, as we are every weekday starting around 1 p.m. We get to have some longer form interviews and conversations here as part of this show. You can find us on our YouTube channel, kptv.com, and of course the Fox 12 Oregon apps. Today, we are talking about unidentified anomalous phenomena. There was a hearing in Congress in D.C. today about this, about UAPs, about UFOs, and we're going to talk about what was discussed during those hearings and talk about the Northwest in general as well when it comes to UFOs. And to do so, joining us right now, we have Cristian Stepien, who is the CTO of the National UFO Reporting Center. And Cristian, thank you for being here with us today. I appreciate your time, and honestly, I appreciate a discussion about this topic in general. But for those who don't know, could you tell us about what this hearing was here today, and then we can maybe go through some of the things that were revealed or talked about during it?
Sure, happy to. So this was a congressional hearing featuring 4 witnesses who gave some pretty darn compelling testimony about what's actually going on with UFOs or UAPs, whatever you choose to call it. Congress has been trying to get to the bottom of what's actually going on with the phenomenon now and get more information out of the Department of Defense and some of these classified programs. For several years now, there was a big hearing about a year ago where I think most people have heard about. David Grush came forward and basically spilled the beans about these classified programs that are studying UFOs, potentially have retrieved crashed UFOs, potentially retrieved bodies, things like that. So this was the next kind of step in that process to get more witnesses in front of Congress and kind of tell more of the story.
And when it comes to those witnesses today, you mentioned a couple of things there, but I don't know if you'd be able to go into a little more detail about some of the things that were maybe specifically revealed today that were new or unique and different compared to what that other hearing had.
Well, to those of us in the UFO community, I don't think there was much that we hadn't known before. A lot of this has been out in books and published papers and things like that. But to have it in front of the American people like this, broadcast live nationally on YouTube, getting it out there is definitely a great step forward. The witnesses were Tim Galladay, who is a retired naval admiral, who was basically, his testimony concerned his contact. He told a story about when he was working for the Navy, and the Navy aviators were basically doing a training exercise off the East Coast. And all of a sudden, this barrage of messages came in over this classified email system that they were encountering something strange out there. And the emails were, does anybody know what this is? If they do, please tell us immediately, because otherwise we're going to have to shut down this training exercise, which is a big deal, because what they're basically saying is there's something that's unsafe for the naval aviators. And one thing the Navy really cares about is safety and making sure that their guys are okay out there. So interestingly enough, when he got back to his office, it's perked his interest. And mysteriously, the email disappeared off these classified servers, and nobody heard another thing about it. So it was basically compartmentalized, classified, whatever it was. And the Navy was, the pilots were left to deal with this on their own. Another story he told was about a submarine, where one of the submariners told him a story about they were basically doing a training exercise, and something was picked up on sonar that was coming towards the submarine. They assumed it was a torpedo from a Russian submarine because it was acting like one. Basically, it was moving at high speed underwater. And they actually took the sub and went down to crush depth to try and avoid it, which is, again, that's a big deal for a submarine to go down like that. And what happened was this object came to the submarine and then basically started maneuvering around it, something a torpedo obviously can't do, and basically following the submarine, doing loops around it, and then it basically just took off and disappeared. So those were some of the stories from Tim. Lou Elizondo basically, confirmed his under oath testimony that we do have government programs that have been involved with crashed UFOs and studying UFOs. Um, Mike Schellenberger kind of has broken a recent story about a very classified Department of Defense program that apparently a couple of whistleblowers have revealed to him that is involved with creating a huge database of UFO recordings, high resolution video, testimony, all kinds of things. So that he's basically put a name to it and say, this is out there. This program exists, and basically produced a report for Congress to look at. And then Mike Gold was basically talking about, uh, what he thinks we can do with NASA. He's been heavily involved with NASA and was proposing things like, using machine learning to go through their databases to identify and make sense of trends and spot things that they may have seen. So I think that those were kind of the high level summaries. And there was a lot of back and forth then, grilling. The Congress people asked a lot of questions, and as they do,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of interesting answers. And there was a lot of basically like answers that I can't talk about that right now. We'd have to go into a SCIF, which is a sensitive compartmentalized information facility for them to be able to talk about it, because
So-
it's still classified material.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So classified in
Mhm.
some way, shape, or form that the public can't know about.
Right.
When when it comes to the idea of how much video is out there, because it's obviously the better tech that we have, the more that we have our phones with us, we have cameras with us, and so you do see more video come out. What do you think that we're seeing with more of these videos? Do you think that this is of just an extraterrestrial origin of some kind, or is this advanced programs that we just don't know about from the Department of Defense or other countries, or different ways that they're utilizing maybe drones or UAVs?
Well, certainly a lot of them are misidentifications. A lot of the videos that people send in to us at the National UFO Reporting Center are things like weather balloons, drones, things that, appear honestly, they're making a very genuine report that they see something they can't explain. But when we look at it, we've seen enough of these that we know what those are. Then there's a class of reports that are just will blow your mind. People will say, I saw a triangle 50 feet on a side hovering silently over my house, making not a sound with these huge red lights in each corner. And then suddenly it shot off to the horizon in a matter of seconds. So things like that, which are the minority, but there's still a sizable amount of them. And a lot of them that are very similar, uh, really point to that there's something going on. There's whether it's whatever you call it, it's a non-human intelligence. NHI is kind of the term that's caught on lately because we don't know if they're from another planet. We don't know if they're from another dimension. We don't know what they are really.
Yeah.
So, and the belief in Congress, and certainly I believe it as well, is that the government has a treasure trove of this stuff under lock and key somewhere, and Congress wants to know about it. And wants to basically reveal that to the American people. Feel we're ready for it, and let's go get it and tell people what's really going on.
I mean, when it comes to that, and whatever the origin may be, yeah, I think we can all agree. Certainly, there's somebody researching that and has that treasure trove of whatever that may be with the government. So, what do you think the reasons are that this is, that they're withholding any kind of information about this, or any of those investigations that could be going on associated with UFOs?
Well, I think it goes back to the origin of the phenomenon in the 40s when we were involved in the Cold War. Everything that was kind of mysterious and high tech was kept top secret. The Manhattan Project, all of our experimental aircraft, and that we basically didn't want the Russians or the Soviets to know what was going on. So there was this whole culture of secrecy, culture of everything is completely locked down. Nobody gets to know anything, and that has just somehow prevailed all these years. There's also the kind of the concept that, well, the Air Force, the Navy, the our military is supposed to protect us. They're supposed to be in charge, right? They're supposed to have control of our skies, control of our waters. When you look at the UFO phenomenon and what these things can do and what they've done, you realize that they don't. They cannot control these things. They're not really the top dog out there. So that's a tough thing for them to admit and come clean with to the public, right? How
Yeah.
people would take that is, different people would take that differently. But I think most people want to know the truth, and most people can handle the truth.
Um, let's talk about, your organization in particular. Could you tell us just a little bit about the UFO Reporting Center and what it is that you do? And you referenced it a little bit earlier, but just explaining your organization a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, we've been, this is our 50th year, actually. We were founded in 1974, and we are basically a clearinghouse for the public to report UFOs. And we take that data, we analyze it, we assign explanations to what we think things are when these reports come in, and we highlight the ones that make that criteria that I was talking about before, that are just like, there's no way we have anything that can possibly do this. So if you go to our site and you go to our data bank and you click on the highlighted reports, you'll get a long list of things that people have seen that defy any, human-made explanation. Our mission is to collect as many reports as we can, document the phenomenon, and get that information out to the American public.
When it comes to the Northwest in particular, there's been a lot of UFO sightings over the years. Do you have any speculation as far as why that is, that Oregon, Washington, the Northwest seems to have so many UFO sightings?
Well, the National UFO Reporting Center was founded in Seattle. So I think we probably became more widely known there in the early days. Um, and so Oregon, in particular, in the eastern parts of the states, Oregon and Washington, um, there are just these wide open skies. People are out there. There's a lot less light pollution. You can see a lot more things. You basically have a much wider vista from horizon to horizon. So when you look at the maps and you correlate population density to the number of UFO sightings, you'll see that Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon have a very high per capita amount of sightings, and there are other places in the West that are like that as well. And then there's some anomalous spots somewhere like in the Adirondack Mountains in New York that you'd say there's no real explanation for why that would be. But Arrow, which is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, actually wrote a paper on this where they looked at where do people see the most UFOs and why do they see them there? And that was kind of the conclusion. It's kind of almost common sense. See more UFOs if you're outside more and you've got a clear view of the sky.
Yeah,
More
that
likely to see something. But people see UFOs everywhere. I mean, in cities, in the country, out in the ocean, the middle of nowhere, they are literally everywhere. If you go to our site and look at the map that we have out there, you'll see it's just with photos throughout the world, really.
And you mentioned, some of those can be explained away as something that's understandable that you may have, and then there's a certain percentage that are not. Um, why do you think that we haven't had any completely conclusive video that can't be discounted that's been out there into the public? Or maybe we have, and what do you think the reasons are that it hasn't been generally
Well,
accepted?
there are some pretty darn conclusive videos that are out there in the public now. The Tic Tac video, the Go Fast, the Gimbal, the three videos that were released when Leslie Kean did her article back in 2017 are extremely convincing, and they've been analyzed heavily by, the Scientific Coalition for UIP Studies and scientists and things like that. And basically, that's been proven. That's not anything that we did. Those were leaked. I won't say surreptitiously, but it was a clever way that Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon got those out of the Defense Department and declassified. They're all out in the public domain legally, completely legally. So again, we believe that there's maybe hundreds or thousands and more of those out there that have not been declassified, and that people, the public hasn't seen yet. The videos that the public gets, because we get cell phone videos all the time, tough for us to see anything conclusive out of those because cell phones are still very small devices. It's late at night. They don't have super high resolution or high ability to capture something at close distance. And then there's also the really interesting phenomenon that cell phones tend to malfunction a lot when a UFO is overhead. We have heard many stories where people said, I saw a triangle right over my head. I pulled my cell phone out and it didn't work. So there's that to deal with as well.
Well, I guess, my final question here is, you mentioned that there's potentially these classified documents with this, again, potential treasure trove of information, more out there. How close do you think that we are to having the government or whatever organization reveal some of that information to the public?
That's the $1 million question. It's extremely hard to say. I mean, there's certainly a battle going on between those who want it released and those who don't. Who's going to win? It's hard to say. So far, the people who have want to keep things under wraps seem to have succeeded in keeping things under wrap. Although certainly a lot more is known now than was, even what 7, 8 years ago. There's been a tremendous reveal of UFO information to the general public. Oh, since the New York Times article that came out, a tremendous amount of interest, and a lot of more people in the government are coming forward to tell what they know, courageously, I'd say, because some of them, have been threatened. Um, they're taking a lot of risks to come and try and get this story out to people when there are those who would really rather have it not revealed.
Well, Cristian, thank you very much, for joining us to talk about this and to have some time to talk to us and cover what it is that, happened today and just the UFO Center in general. I think there's so much to talk about with that, and I just appreciate your time in recapping that event and everything else that's gone on with it today.
Yeah, and I would encourage any one of your viewers who has seen something, please go to our website, document it, preserve the story. Don't let it be lost with you. UFOcenter.com or newfork.org. You can go there, and we have a real easy to use online form. You can send us pictures, drawings, whatever you have. Tell us what you saw, and the more people we get to reveal, we estimate that maybe 5 to 10% of people who've seen something actually report it. So there's, if you took it, we have what 180,000 reports on our site. You multiply that out on how many sightings there have potentially been in this world. It's tremendous.
And so it's getting people to report those and get those in.
Yeah.
Well,
and you can also look at it, go through the stories on our site and learn more about them yourself.
100%. Well, thank you very much for having some time for us today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks. Appreciate the chance.
And for everybody watching, this is Fox 12 Now. We're live streaming. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a little bit, but you can follow this at our Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel, kptv.com, or the Fox 12 Oregon apps. All great places to find all the content and the various things that we cover on there. And join in the conversation if you want to, or share those segments as well. But thanks for joining us. I'll talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.